Something is happening beneath the Cascade Mountains. Something quiet, but growing. And scientists are suddenly whispering warnings they usually keep locked behind conference doors. Because for the first time in decades, data from deep underground isn't matching the timelines we've been told to trust. And here's the part that raises the stakes instantly. If the Cascades are shifting, experts warn it could affect the entire Pacific Ring of Fire. These mountains aren't isolated. They're plugged into a global system of fire and pressure. A system already tense. A system that doesn't like surprises. And lately, it's full of them. The silence is the warning. The Cascade Range stretches from Northern California to Washington, a chain of peaceful-looking peaks that hide one of the most restless volcanic zones in North America. Rainier, Hood, Shasta, Baker, Crater Lake, and the one nobody ever forgets, St. Helens. They look calm, serene, almost asleep. But here's where things get strange. Satellites have been picking up subtle heat changes for months. Not huge signals, not dramatic ones, but weird patterns that don't belong. And beneath several peaks, the ground has been swelling and sinking in slow, uneven waves, as if the mountains are breathing deeply, breathing irregularly. And the timing of these changes across the range? Too coincidental to ignore. Some scientists say it's harmless. Others say it's a sign of pressure returning. And then there's the small group, the worried group, saying, and this might be the start of a chain reaction. The Cascades have erupted for thousands of years. Explosive blasts, lava flows, ash clouds thick enough to turn noon into night. Fast, choking lahars that race like rivers of wet cement. Families today live right on top of ancient mud flows and don't even know it. Schools, highways, whole neighborhoods. Most people have no idea that the peaceful hills beneath their homes came from past eruptions, and the same paths those flows carved are still waiting. This is where the story takes a darker turn. When experts looked at new ground deformation maps, they realized several high-risk areas needed to be expanded. Not by a lot, just enough to say something's different, and that something has been spreading from one peak to the next. If all of this feels like a local problem, it isn't. The Cascades sit on top of the Juan de Fuca Plate, a small oceanic plate being dragged under North America. That subduction zone is connected to a much larger engine, the Ring of Fire. When one part of the system changes, the whole ring feels it. Think of it like a massive wound tightening under the crust, pressure building, energy shifting, the ground holding its breath. And the Cascades, they're part of that breath. Which is why scientists around the world are watching these mountains closely, closer than ever before. For years, volcanic forecasts relied on clear patterns: earthquakes, gas emissions, ground bulges. Some Cascade peaks, like Mount Hood and Mount Rainier, are getting quieter, not louder. And that silence? It scares experts more than shaking ever did. Because volcanoes don't just calm down, not without a reason, not without something shifting deeper. One researcher said, the Cascades feel like they're holding their breath. Another said, something deeper is moving, but no one can agree on what, and disagreement in science is a warning sign of its own. Mount Hood showing pressure pulses, Rainier warming slightly, Shasta giving off irregular heat signals, St. Helens breaking its own rules. None of these alone would be alarming, but all of them at the same time? That's what has scientists unsettled. This is where things changed. When researchers laid the signals side by side, the patterns lined up. Different mountains, different symptoms, but the timing matched. That's when one volcanologist asked the question no one wanted an answer. What if these volcanoes are linked more than we thought? If activity is rising across the entire range and even slightly, it means the deeper magma systems might be shifting in ways models haven't caught up to yet. A chain reaction doesn't mean multiple eruptions. It means multiple volcanoes entering new phases at once. And if that's happening, the old eruption timelines are no longer reliable. Imagine a normal morning. Coffee, quiet, kids heading to school, people driving to work along roads built on old mud flows. Then the first sign hits. A deep rumble, windows shaking, dogs barking, a distant roar, ash miles high, darkness by noon, air thick like smoke. A lahar racing down the valley, swallowing bridges before anyone understands what's happening. Families trapped on roads they never knew were danger zones. Entire towns cut off in minutes. This isn't fear-mongering. This is what happened before, and what will happen again. Because eruptions in the Cascades aren't theories. They're history. And history repeats in this region. Every time. Even months ago, new seismic arrays picked up odd microquakes under multiple peaks. Tiny pops of stress, faint but persistent. Then came the heat shifts. Then the deformation waves. Then the gas fluctuations. Each signal alone, harmless. Together, a pattern scientists can't explain. And the next discovery changed everything. Deep imaging tech captured something unexpected beneath one of the volcanoes, a zone of rising magma farther north than expected, a zone that wasn't supposed to exist, a zone that might connect to more than one peak. And that data is what forced experts to recheck every assumption they had about the range. To understand what's happening, you have to zoom out, way out. The Pacific Northwest sits on top of a megathrust fault. It's where the Juan de Fuca plate dives under North America. That grinding, dragging motion feeds magma upward. It created the Cascades. It filled Crater Lake. It blew St. Helens apart. It could even unleash a massive quake like the one in 1700. And right now, that system seems to be shifting. Not enough to cause panic, but enough for scientists to say quietly, "We've never seen it act like this." The crust beneath the Cascades feels like it's tightening, slowly, silently, like a wound pulling shut. After reviewing months of mismatched readings, one expert finally said the line that sent shockwaves through the geology world. If these signals continue, the next eruption might not wait centuries. And that's when attention shifted to one specific mountain, the one showing the strangest, most contradictory signals in the entire range. A volcano nobody is watching closely. A volcano hiding something beneath it. A volcano that may be changing faster than any of the others. The volcano worrying scientists the most isn't Rainier. It isn't St. Helens. It isn't Hood. It's one almost no one talks about. One that sits quietly, politely, like it's trying not to be noticed. And the reason it's suddenly on expert radars, its signals don't make sense. But before we reveal which mountain it is, you need to understand why its behavior has geologists pacing hallways and rewriting models they once trusted. Because this is where the story takes its darkest turn. Across the Cascade Range, the small, subtle signs have been stacking up like puzzle pieces that don't quite fit. Microquakes that appear, disappear, then suddenly form strange patterns. Heat signatures shifting in quiet pulses. Ground deformation rising in one area while sinking in another, almost like pressure moving through deep channels. Then scientists noticed something unsettling. These changes weren't happening randomly, they were happening in a sequence, almost like a pulse traveling down the range. And if magma is migrating beneath multiple volcanoes at once, that means the Cascades may be connected in ways no one predicted. The mountains felt like they were holding their breath, one researcher said. The crust was tightening like a wound. And then things got stranger. Everyone watches Rainier, everyone watches St. Helens, but the peaks that worry scientists now are the ones that don't give obvious warnings. The ones that stay calm until the last possible moment. Historically, some Cascade eruptions came with barely any precursors, small quakes, a few gas spikes, then boom. That unpredictability is what scares experts. Because today, the quiet volcanoes are the ones acting weird. Mount Baker has shown faint heat anomalies on its flanks. Newberry has seen pressure pockets forming deeper than sensors can fully map. Crater Lake, born from the massive eruption of Mount Mazama, has shown tiny, rhythmic pulses in the water temperature near its vents. Nothing dramatic, nothing headline-worthy. But when the quiet peaks whisper at the same time, volcanologists listen. And right now they're hearing something they didn't expect. People picture lava when they think about eruptions. Bright, slow, easy to outrun. But the Cascades don't erupt like that. They erupt with explosions that shred the sky, ash raining down like gray snow, pyroclastic flows racing faster than cars, and the most dangerous threat of all? Lahars. Thick, cement-like mud flows that roar down river valleys, carrying trees, rocks, houses, everything. Thousands of people in the Northwest live directly on top of the paths these lahars traveled before. Roads, schools, whole towns. Families who have no idea their homes sit on old mud flow debris. If one of these volcanoes wakes up fast, the first warning might be the sound of distant thunder that isn't thunder at all. A roar, a rush, a flood of gray. And by then, it's already moving. For years, monitoring stations have scanned the Cascades like a giant stethoscope. They listen for quakes, heat, gas, shifts in the ground. But then a cluster of anomalies appeared, the kind scientists hate. First anomaly, a string of microquakes under a peak known for long, silent stretches. Second anomaly, temperature increases in snowmelt around its upper slopes. Third anomaly, deep, low-frequency tremors, the kind often linked to rising magma, showing up in a pattern experts couldn't explain. The anomalies didn't match any known eruption cycle. They didn't match historical behavior. They didn't match the models. This was new, too new, and it pulled attention toward a volcano everyone assumed was stable. A volcano with a reputation for being safe. A volcano that might not be safe anymore. But before the name leaked through academic circles, another discovery pushed the situation from concerning to critical. When new deep Earth imaging data was released, scientists spotted something unbelievable. a magma reservoir sitting farther north than any predicted model placed it, more liquid than expected, hotter than expected, wider than expected, and it appeared to connect, even loosely, with the plumbing of two separate volcanoes. The timing of the new seismic pulses suddenly made sense. The heat anomalies, the deformation waves. Something deeper was moving, and that meant only one thing. The Cascades might be entering a new active era. If that's true, eruption intervals shrink, warnings shrink, the quiet periods shrink, and one volcano's signals pointed to that shift more than any other. It's not the famous ones. It's not the ones people fear. It's Mount Adams, the giant almost nobody talks about. Huge, brooding, understudied, under-monitored. For years, Adams was considered low risk. Nothing like Rainier, nothing like St. Helens, but the new data changed that overnight. Adams showed a cluster of deep quakes, deeper than its usual activity. Heat pulses coming from its east flank. Ground shifts measured in centimeters, not millimeters. Gas anomalies that appeared, faded, then returned in a different location. This is where things get strange. The signals don't match known patterns for Adams. They match early-stage activity from eruptions in other parts of the Cascades. Scientists aren't panicking yet, but they are paying attention for the first time in decades. Because if Adams is waking up, it could change everything. It sits right in the middle of the range. Its magma system is poorly mapped. It could influence or react to deeper pressure from nearby peaks. And here's the part experts are afraid to say out loud. If Adams becomes active, it may signal a range-wide shift, a domino, a trigger, a sign the whole system is tightening. While this is happening, the Pacific Ring of Fire has been unusually busy. Volcanoes in Alaska, Japan, and the Philippines have shown irregular activity. Fault zones across the Pacific have been releasing stress in strange patterns. The whole ring feels tense. And because the Cascades sit on the same global belt, changes here affect pressure there, and vice versa. This isn't a Northwest issue. It's a piece of a global shift geologists are racing to understand, and Adams might be the earliest warning. After months of quiet debate, one conclusion is slowly forming behind closed doors. If the current trends continue, the next Cascade eruption won't wait centuries. Not even close. Some experts believe the Cascades may already be entering a new eruptive window, a period where multiple volcanoes quietly reawaken. And the strange part? The weirdest, most unpredictable signals are still coming from Mount Adams, a mountain almost no one is watching. A giant hiding in plain sight, a peak that may be changing faster than expected. And if the next anomaly hits, the one scientists are watching for, everything could shift overnight. Because the silence is the warning.